I'm Reese, and this is Nick, and this is Snicks and stuff. And today Nick brought me some really, really awesome stuff.
Yeah, okay. You want me to get started here?
Yes.
Alright, who do we have? We're going to start with this guy, I think. Come here, you. We brought some Leopard Geckos today to show you. This guy is a Max Snow. He's a Tangerine Max Snow Leopard Gecko. Leopard geckos come in all kinds of colors, and you go to a reptile expo and it seems like everybody's got their own variety or version of the various colors that are out there. I produced this guy several years ago, and we've been working on a Max Snow project. I enjoy them. Just kind of cross them up, see what comes out. If we find something we like, we see if we can't build on it a little more through the generations. This has been one of my favorites for quite some time. Here we've got one that most people have probably seen. Easy now. This guy's got some energy to him. Calm down. Let's see. This is a super hypo, and he's got a little bit of carrot tail there. We're just using him to outcross some of our lines for some of our projects.
And they all have this real thick tail.
Yeah, that thick tail. These are both males, and so they're bigger animals than what a female would be. Those thick tails actually store nutrition, or they'll store fat in there. Females, when you breed, they actually will draw from this to be able to give the babies what they need. Gives them a little extra backup. You know, you hear in the wild, they're going to use it for if they have to go a long period without food or something. So it's a little bit of a storage system they've got there. A lot of times, girls after breeding season will look all drug out and skinny. You can get to know how their tails will expand and shrink, and you can kind of gauge what kind of food to put in them to keep their tails where you want them. We feed a good variety to our geckos. We try to give them as much as possible. I actually raise crickets, dubia, super, and mealworms, so we mix it up. I've heard people keeping on a staple of any of the one, and they do absolutely fine.
And if somebody did want to keep them, what kind of habitat would be best for them?
These guys kind of like it dry, but they like a nice humid den. It's hard to get a good cage flooring for these guys because they will eat just about anything that fits in their mouth when they're going after the bugs. So you got to be careful with things like sand, even the calci sands and things like that. I've heard mixed opinions on. So I usually recommend people for leopard geckos that they use paper towels to get them started, and then eventually you get some kind of cage carpeting. For the humid hides, you can get fancy decorative things you can put in there, and you put some damp moss or something in. Or you can go simple, and we keep it simple with some of ours. We use simple little storage boxes, cut a hole in the top, put some damp paper towels in there. That way we can change them out as we need to. And then we use vermiculite in our nest boxes, so some of our boxes will have vermiculite as a moist hide. You can use just about anything. The various mosses that they sell at the stores, anything that can be kept wet and hold humidity well in that humid hide. These guys do like to hide a good bit of the time, so giving them a dry hide spot is important as well, so they don't sit on that wet constantly. We got one more over here as well. I'll show you. I'm trying to wrangle two geckos at the same time. These are all males I brought today, so let's see if I can get myself chewed on, or if you might end up having to catch. This is just an albino I hatched a few years back. Of the three, this is going to be by far the easiest going one. This guy's been around to see thousands and thousands of kids. He's been touched. He's been at fairs and festivals, and he's awesome. You'll set him on the table, and everybody can come by and touch him. You can tell who's been messed with the most. This being my kids show gecko for years. He's been handled absolutely by far the most. This guy over here being just a house pet. He doesn't like to travel. He gets handled by my kids. He gets handled by me. But he's a little more weary about being handled, especially today because we're not at home and he's not used to leaving the house. And then this guy, who we've only had for a couple months, he's all spunky. So the more time you put into him, the more easygoing they're going to be. That's a really big thing. A lot of people buy a pet reptile and they expect it to automatically just be easy to handle. Oh, you stop it. I don't know if you can see that in the camera. He actually just opened his mouth and threatened to bite me. The more you mess with them, and you can see I stayed calm and I'm being gentle. I didn't get excited about it. and he's calmed back down for the moment. But the more you handle them like this, the more used to you they become, and eventually they can be a puppy dog like this guy here. I have a 2-year-old who carries him around, no problem at all. And I don't worry about nipping or anything like that. But it's not something, if you leave it in a cage, that it's going to want to be messed with tomorrow. If you leave it there and you never handle it, don't expect it to want to be handled. You have to invest your time. And if you invest your time, you get an awesome little pet.
I'm covered in geckos. I'm
You're
very
covered
happy.
in geckos.
I'm very happy.
We're going to put this guy back in his box. He's ready to run. Come here, you.
I don't know where the tortoise went.
Alright, so a little bit more about genetics on these guys. This guy here, he's a Tremper albino, is the line. There's 3 different types of albinos. They're not compatible. So if you were to go and try to pick up a gecko at a reptile expo, you want to breed your geckos, make sure that the breeder can tell you what lineage the albino line is from. Or if you've got something that's carrying hets, you want to be careful not to mix up the lines, because then we don't know what you're producing down the road, and that can kind of be a mess. So this guy here, he's Tremper albino, which is a recessive gene, meaning that if I was to breed a Tremper albino to, say, a Max Snow, we would make wild type offspring. Now, because a Max Snow is a incomplete, or commonly we call it codominant mutation, some of those offspring would actually also be Max Snow, because it is dominant. Now, to really get complicated here, we can go ahead and say this guy is also het, so if this was a pair, we'd make albino, Max Snows, and normals from this pairing. Genetics can get kind of complicated the more genes you put in the mix, and in reality, in these 2 animals here, we also have the tangerine, we have lavender, and I don't even know, a bunch of different things just kind of come out of this project that we've crossed into it over the years. So Max Snow, being an incomplete dominant, then would have what's called a super form. So the super form, probably my favorite variety of leopard geckos, is a xanthic, or it removes all of the yellow and orange pigments. So you're left with a black and white gecko. It looks like a Dalmatian. And then through selective breeding, we can cross in the hypo, like we were showing you a moment ago, and reduce that black spotting, and we can get into all kinds of wild stuff. And this is how breeders produce all of the insane colors that you see when you go on the internet and start looking at breeder websites, or when you're at an expo and you're looking at the table. They are just mixing up different mutations that randomly occurred. If I remember correctly, the first albino was a Tremper albino, and it was produced out of wild-caught animals. So this is not some form of genetic engineering. I've actually heard that a lot out and talking to people in public. They think that we're creating some kind of crazy mutation with the animals. It's no different than blonde hair in people. It's a random mutation that occurs that's passed along through the lineage, and there's nothing about it that is dangerous to the animal or causes harm.
So this one's not like a common.
At one point in time, that would have been a rare coloration, but now
it's pretty common.
The Max Snow gene is pretty common these days. Honestly, I couldn't even get into what the rare colors are anymore. There's so many colors out there in leopard geckos. I breed what I like. I don't really care what else is out there. I just have fun with the genetics I have. If I see a new gene pop up and I go, I'm going to mix that in my group, I'll snag one and mix it in. I've been breeding leopard geckos for like 15 or 20 years, but I only keep about 6 or 7 of them. They're fun little animals to have a small collection of, but they're not something I really heavily focus on.
But you actually have a collection of geckos that you're rehabilitating.
Yeah, we also do get a lot of rescue geckos in. We've seen them with all kinds of issues. Some of the common issues we see in leopard geckos is just malnutrition. If we breed geckos quite a bit, what will end up happening is those females, they'll lose weight in their tails, and it can be hard to get that weight back on. So breeders will use tricks like feeding superworms and those sorts of things, maybe a pinky mouse here and there. But a lot of pet owners aren't knowledgeable in that information, and so they end up taking the females and not knowing what to do with them, and they can't get the weight back on, it becomes a mess. So we get a lot of skinny females in for that reason. We also get in a lot of animals that are missing toes. That can be prevented by giving them a humid hide box, which we spoke about earlier. They need that humidity in there to help be able to pull their skin sheds off properly. If you do have a gecko with stuck shed on its toes, stick him in a shallow dish of water for a little while. Let him soak his toes in there, get it real squishy. He's not going to like it. It's not going to make him happy, but then it'll come off real easy. If you try to take that skin off without making it wet first, you can actually skin his toe. It's not pretty, it's bad. We don't want to do that. So make sure you soak their feet a little bit. As long as you soak their feet and take it off, it's not that big of a deal.
So, I know you spoke a lot about breeding. What exactly, like, how do you breed them? Like, how often do they breed? Like, I know nothing about gecko reproduction, so.
Okay. Depending on who you talk to, I've had a lot of different stories. One thing that's interesting about leopard geckos in captivity is there's actually several different subspecies that initially were imported into the U.S. We didn't realize they were different subspecies, so we crossed them up, and that's probably part of why we have as many mutations as we do today. Some of the guys who focus on them way more than I do could probably tell you exactly what lineage, what morph came from. I don't have that information. But essentially what we have here is a mutt. This is probably as close to a domesticated reptile as you're ever going to see, which is why one of the reasons why leopard geckos do make such fantastic pets. So I've heard some people say you breed in the fall, you breed in the spring, you breed different times a year. What I have found is different females want to breed at different times a year. I have certain girls that want to breed in November, December. I have other girls that are breeding right now. So it really just depends. Some people like to colony raise their geckos, which means to keep a male and several females together. Some people like to hand breed, which means you keep them separate and you introduce it when you can find that the female's ovulating, which it's actually fairly easy to see when a female is ovulating. I do a little bit of everything. I toss my geckos together and they breed. I for a long time, kept them separate. Here recently, I have put them back together. Years ago, when I started, I colony raised all of them. Now I've gone back to colony raising. Biggest trouble I've had with colony raising is competition for food. You end up with a dominant, you end up with a subordinate, and the subordinate ends up not getting enough food. And it didn't matter if I had males in the cages or not. So if you do choose to keep your animals in a group, pay close attention to which animals are eating all of the food, because you don't want to end up with an animal that is less than healthy because it simply isn't getting enough food. So pay attention to your animals. One good thing to do is get yourself a little set of feeding tongs. It's a trick I use to make sure everybody is getting something to eat. Is you can tong feed them. You can separate them if you feed something like crickets. I'll feed them mealworms on tongs. If I notice somebody seems to not be getting as much, supplement with that. Helps put a little extra weight on them, make sure they're getting without so much competition for the more dominant animals.
Alright, so say you throw your geckos together, they do the business, they breed. How many eggs do they usually lay, and how long does it take to hatch?
Younger females will usually lay, a lot of times I'll get younger females lay a single egg. Most of the time they're going to lay 2 eggs. And that also is a huge range, and you're going to get a different answer from probably every breeder you talk to. My experience is from breeding to egg laying, try to remember actually, because I really can't say I pay much attention. I check my gecko egg boxes every day. I want to say it's about 2 weeks from breeding to egg laying. It might be 4 weeks now that I say that. But I don't pay too much attention to that, because when you pick your girls up, you can look at them like this, and you can see when the eggs are developing. When those eggs look about mature, I put in a fresh nest box, and I know within 2 to 3 days I'm going to have eggs. And that's how I do it. I just watch for the eggs in their bellies. Now, as far as incubation, depending on temperature, I've heard ranges anywhere from 40 on up to like 90 days. I generally incubate at about 84 degrees, and I find that most of my eggs hatch right around day 50 to 56. But you know, that can vary also depending on the genetics of the animals and everything else. So it's all just a guessing game.
Alright, well, let's put these guys back in their box and see what else you brought me.
All right, sounds good.
Hey everybody, Reese here. I wanted to thank you all so much for watching our first episode of Snakes and Stuff. It means so much. I'm so thankful to be working with Nick and his amazing animals and having him help me with this project. If you like what you saw, hit like and subscribe. We're still working on getting some bugs out of the system, but just thank you.